Hello students and welcome to our first flipped classroom. Today in flipped classroom number 1, we're going to be reviewing time clauses and we're going to learn how they can express the future. This is also found in your Azar book in chapter 3-8. Okay? So we've talked about time clauses in class before. Let's review what is a clause, okay? And I'm going to ask you a lot of questions in the flipped classroom. If you want time to think about the answer, you can pause the video and think because I'm going to give you the answer right away. All right. So what is a clause? A clause contains a subject and it also has a verb. Okay, so we need these two things to make a clause. Let's take a look at these time clauses here, and I know that they're time clauses because they begin with a time word. After I eat dinner and while I was doing my homework, okay? Do you think these two time clauses are also full sentences or not? And how do you know? So take a minute to think about that. All right, so if you said that these are not full sentences, then you are correct. Good job. A time clause needs not only a time clause to be a full sentence, but also a main clause. So in other words, we need two clauses to make a full sentence. We need a time clause and also another clause, a main clause. So let's see if we can add a main clause to these. After I eat dinner, after I eat dinner, I'll do the dishes. After I dinner, I'll do the dishes. Okay, that sounds like a good plan for tonight. And the second one, while I was doing my homework. I see that this one was talking about the past. While I was doing my homework, my sister was watching TV. Okay, so these two things happened at the same time. Now, these are full sentences. Okay. Let's take a look at number 1 down here. Before I go to bed, I brush my teeth. Okay. I remember this one from the last time we learned about time clauses. Before I go to bed uses present simple. I brush my teeth also uses present simple. So I know that this one is talking about a habit. Maybe this is something that I do every day, right? Or every night before I go to bed. Okay. Let's look at number 2 though. Before I go to bed tonight, I'm going to brush my teeth. Looking at number 2, do you think it happens in the past, now, or the future? Great, so if you said the future, then you are correct. You probably looked at the word tonight. You probably also looked at this verb tense, which we just learned, I'm going to brush. And you know that that talks about the future. So good job. Let's also look at number 3 and 4, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about when each sentence happens, the past, now, or the future. All right, so if you said number 3 happens in the future, you are correct, right? Even though it uses present simple here, we see over here, I'll do, right? And we know that I will do talks about the future. Number 4, very similarly, we use present simple in the if clause, but in the main clause, we also have will see, and that also talks about the future, okay? So we can see that time clauses can talk about habits or things that happen every day, but they can also talk about the future, right? Now let's look at how we know what time each one is talking about. Okay, so let's look at, let's check letter A. Which clause uses the future will, or we can also add be going to? Is it the time clause or the main clause? Okay, so let's look at number 3, for example. Does the time clause use the future, or does the main clause use the future? Well, we can see it's the main clause, right? So I'm going to underline that. When we want to talk about the future, the main clause is going to take the future, either will or be going to. Now let's look at exercise letter B, okay? B says the time clause uses simple present tense, and the main clause uses simple present tense. Do we think this is talking about a habit, or do we think it's talking about the future? If the time clause uses simple present and the main clause also uses simple present, maybe like this one. Before I go to bed, I brush my teeth. That's a habit, right? So we can say a time clause simple present, a main clause simple present, that's a habit. Maybe every day, every week, okay? How about this one? When the time clause uses simple present and the main clause uses will or be going to, what time are we talking about? If you said we're talking about the future, then great, good job, okay? So we can see by changing the verb tense of the main clause, we change when that action or that sentence happens, okay? So I have some practice exercises for you. Please pause the video as you think about them, okay? And when you're ready and you have the answers, you can turn the video back on because I'm going to tell you the answers in just a moment. Okay, so for number 1, it says before I come to 110B class next week. Okay, so we should use the future here. Either I will finish or I am going to finish. Okay, because it's a plan, something that I'm planning, we might want to use I'm going to finish. Okay. Number 2, while you are in bed tonight, my friend in China will be at work. Okay. Maybe it's a prediction, right? So we can say will be. Number 3, I'll give John your message when I see him. Okay. For this one, we're using present simple. Why? Because the time clause comes second. Remember, with the time clause, we always are going to use present simple. In the other clause, we're using future here. Okay, just like in number 2, the time clause is first. We use present simple in that time clause when you are in bed. Okay. Number 4 is very similar to number 3. I'm going to go home as soon as the class ends, right? Again, we're using present simple here because as soon as is the time clause, right? So we need to use present simple in the time clause. Okay, great. Practice 2, there are some mistakes. After I'm going to eat dinner, I will wash the dishes, okay? Here we can see the main clause, I will wash, right? Using the future. But in the time clause, we need to use which verb tense? We need to use the present simple. After I eat dinner, okay? Number 2, while my sister is at work, I went to school. What's wrong here? Well, we have 2 different time tenses. We have present simple. So this either needs to be present simple. While my sister is at work, I am at school. Or we can say I am going to be, right? So we can either use present simple or we can use a future tense, okay? Number 3, if it is raining tomorrow, okay, I'm going to stay home, right? Here we have an if clause. If clause uses present simple, and so the main clause needs to use future, right? I'm going to stay home, or we could also say I will stay home, okay? Okay, so I hope you learned a little bit about time clauses when we're talking about the future. I have some homework down here that I'd like you to do in the Azar book, and then I'd also like you to write these sentences of your own, okay, using the 4 words in the box, 1 for each sentence. So please be ready to give that to me for a grade next Tuesday. All right, see you next week, students.